Hi, a very good evening to one and all. A hearty, warm welcome to this insightful panel discussion on Forbes Care's perspective on hashtag Close the Care Gap 2023, the effect of precision oncology and barriers to overcome in the future. So, as we're all aware, 4th of February is celebrated as World Cancer Day, and the UICC has given the theme for the year 2022-2024 as Close the Care Gap. It's a 3-year campaign for impact. This campaign is essentially built to inspire the change and mobilize action long after the day itself. A multi-year campaign means we gain more exposure, more engagement, more opportunities to build a global awareness. And ultimately, of course, we have an immense impact on the lives of our patients. Today with us, we have Mr. Hitesh Goswami, who is the COO and co-founder of Forbes Care. We have Mr. Kshitij Rishi, who is the CEO and co-founder of Forbes Care. And we have Dr. Vidya Veldore with us, who is a clinical director at Forbes Care. A warm welcome to all of you. We are really looking forward to hear some amazing knowledge from all of you guys, your perspective on what you think about how we at Forbes Care are going to close the care gap. So without wasting much time, I will like to start with Hitesh. So Hitesh, according to you, how is Forbes Care resonating with the theme of close the care gap? What are the barriers in precision oncology space and how we at Forbes Care are working to overcome them?
This is very exciting. In fact, all of us internally do a lot of these discussions. It's interesting and exciting to do it live on LinkedIn and share our perspective. So before getting specifically to your question in terms of precision oncology, right? What I strongly believe, and at Forbes Care, what we strongly believe is the major gap that we see in terms of cancer care is not one but multifold. So what we believe is that there are 4 pillars of cancer care. One is, of course, clinical care, which is provided by the doctors, by the healthcare providers. Then there is allied care, which is more non-clinical, say nutritional counseling support or psychological counseling support, or NGOs, which are supporting patients with funding and everything non-clinical, right? And then, of course, there's technology like genomics, data science, digital health, companies like Forbes Care, Illumina, who are continuously working on developing solutions which might have clinical applications. And finally, of course, it is the global genomics research, which is done at industry and academia level, which is continuously scaling or improving research, which is happening in cancer, which is translating from bench to bedside, as we call it, right? Now, unfortunately, these 4 pillars, they don't talk to each other. There's a lack of collaboration, right? And that is where we feel is the largest gap in terms of cancer care. And that is a gap that as a company, we want to fill. In fact, if you look at Forbes Care, the name itself has 2 connotations. One is that these 4 bases of these 4 pillars of cancer care, which we want to bring together as a singular ecosystem for them to crosstalk, for them to collaborate, for them to work together. And of course, the standard connotation is 4 bases are the basis of the DNA, which will come to now. So genomics, as you mentioned, precision oncology, when we talk about precision oncology or precision medicine, today genomics is one of the center stone of precision medicine, right? And how we are using genomics. Now, again, from perspective of gap over there, has been majorly from 2 fronts. If we are looking especially in countries like India or low-income countries in Southeast Asia, right? One is from genomics perspective itself. Currently, genomics is being used in terms of personalizing cancer treatment. What I mean over here is that we try to get better understanding at a molecular level of the cancer tissue and try to find biomarkers or the mutations which helps us identify or match patient to the right treatment. And then if we forward integrate that technology, then it would also be used in terms of liquid biopsy, in terms of patient monitoring or disease progression. And if you look into a backward integration, It is more from the perspective of early screening, right? Looking at healthy individuals and trying to catch cancer early. Now, unfortunately, what has happened is most of the genomics data which is available today globally is from the Caucasian population. So there's a lot of white bias in the data which is there. So which limits the kind of the research and application of precision oncology from perspective of other population. In fact, there's a very recent study which very clearly indicated that how lack of this data leads to not proper stratification of patients for personalized treatment, and why this kind of data is required, and why it is required to debias this data and have more data from underrepresented population, right? So that was one of the challenges that we identified, one of the gaps that we identified as a company. And fortunately for us, it was Illumina, where we were part of the accelerator program, first company from Asia Pacific to be backed by Illumina. And the first question to them was that, guys, we want to develop something which is indigenous in nature. We don't want to use the panels which are currently available. We want to develop something, validate something on our population, in fact, other populations, and develop something which is very, very population specific. Because in one hand, you're talking about precision medicine, but your base is not precise, right? So that's where we decided, we in fact collaborated with some of the top clinicians and hospitals and launched world's first Indian population specific cancer gene panel. So in fact, today we have more than 4,000 whole exomes of tumor tissues from Indian patients, right? And that allows us to continuously innovate, do research, and bring in solutions which are much more precise when it comes to our population. So that is one of the gap where we need to generate more data from our populations and develop solution which is based on these data points, right? And second gap, of course, is the affordability. If you look at precision oncology or genomics as a technology, how it is being applied in the West, it is mostly covered by insurance, and the paying propensity of the patients is much higher compared to low and middle income countries like the one we are talking about right now, right? So for us, you cannot have thousands of dollars worth of test which is affordable by most of the patients. If you want to go to grassroots level, if we want more and more patient to get access to technology, we need to make it more affordable. It should be like doing a PET CT scan, right? That's where the access is there, because unfortunately the treatment associated with biomarkers are very expensive. Now, if you make the test also to identify those biomarkers expensive, then think of the kind of load that is there on the patient. So another gap that we need to close, and which at 4Base Care we are continuously working towards, is closing this gap in terms of affordability and accessibility, and trying to not just build solutions which are validated on our population, but also developing solutions which are accessible and affordable, so that what we believe at 4Base Care very strongly, as you know, right, that giving cancer patient the best chance at fighting cancer, right? We don't want any patient to not get an opportunity to do a biomarker testing because they cannot financially afford. We want to change that. We want to make sure that every patient gets the right to access the technology to get the best cancer care and opportunity to identify the right treatment for themselves. So I think from genomics perspective, large perspective, already mentioned that we need more collaboration. But from genomics perspective, I think we need to work on more population-specific data and solutions, and affordability and accessibility of the solutions. So yeah, that's my perspective.
Wonderful, wonderful, Hitesh. I mean, I think that was quite elaborative, and that completely gave us a very good idea about how 4Base Care is very well aligned with the Close the Care Gap campaign that we have, and that's our mission and vision essentially for our organization. We believe if all organizations work with the same mindset and collaborate with each other, as you said, I think we will definitely be giving cancer patients their best chance at fighting cancer.
Absolutely.
So moving from that to Kshitij. So how do you think that, we at 4Base Care, we're also taking in some digital health solutions, some steps in that sector to bridge the gap in terms of the inequities that the cancer patients have. So can you help us throw some light on that aspect? How are we doing that?
Sure. Thanks, Divya, for the same. And thanks for hosting such a great initiative.
My pleasure.
So thanks for everyone for attending this LinkedIn Live session as well. So I'll start from the digital side of the company. When Hitesh mentioned that our objective was to bring a large set of people on a collaborative platform, and that's something that was the I mean, that's something that was the push for us to utilize digital. Now that if you know mobile, the utilization of smartphone or the use of smartphone is in every village and town. Can we utilize the same uh, platform to reach out to larger number of patients and bring people together is what we started with, and that's where OncoBuddy came. We wanted to create a platform which is a patient-centric platform, because the first stakeholder which we wanted to bring on board as a collaborator was the patient. And that's why OncoBuddy came in. And OncoBuddy is an app where patients can be a part of one of the largest cancer community, where they can learn from each other, share their experiences, ask questions to each other, and understand challenges what others are facing, realizing they're not alone. Because cancer has been known to be a isolating experience creator kind of a disease, where they can actually feel that why me, why I'm the only one. And with this community, they'll realize they're not the only ones and things like that. And we are not just giving access and creating this community, but also we realized early on that as soon as someone hears this C word, which is cancer, that they should get worried and they start looking at information at various sources. So now additional support that we wanted to provide to the patients and their family members was, is there a place where we can share verified and validated content in terms of videos, blogs, and other modes, where they learn about their own disease and get better informed next steps. The second stakeholder which we wanted to bring out upfront, which is a very, very important stakeholder, which has not been given as much importance, is the caregiver. We realized a caregiver is equally or sometimes more important in a cancer care, right? So we in our OncoBuddy, we actually created another persona of the caregiver, where they can be a part of everything that the patient is going through, and they don't need to be necessarily at the same physical place of with the patient. So can we provide supports where a caregiver is, even if it's he or she is sitting somewhere else, can we provide some support to them where they can understand what the actual patient is going through, and then help the patient maneuver their journey. Bringing the other stakeholders to OncoBuddy was and has been very, very important, and will be continuing to be our focus. So that's where we brought in the allied care ecosystem on this same, where we have various kind of psychological counselors, dietitian or dietary counselors, other pain counselors, and many other allied care support systems to be brought in on OncoBuddy, where they are interacting with patients and supporting them in their cancer journey or the fight against cancer that we use. But having said that, we cannot obviously discount the clinical people or the doctors. So we also realize that not just the app, but we need to create efficiencies in the discussions that the patients have with doctors, right? Because if you see the number, 15 lakh new diagnoses every year in the country, managed by 5 to 6,000 of the oncologists. So it's super skewed towards a very high patient number. Can we increase efficiencies of those discussions using these digital tools that we are creating? And that's where one part was done on OncoBuddy, where now doctors, if they want to, they can actually look at the 200, 300 pages of the patient in just a flip of their finger, and even filter and look at all their records very easily, where patients have been digitizing their records, and doctors can now look at it in a very efficient way and take informed decisions faster. But apart from that, we are also creating web-based solutions for doctors, where they can actually not just look at the journey of those patients, but can we say support them in by use of these AI ML algorithms in identifying others who have gone through similar journeys, and improve their decision making by telling what others have taken. So those are some of the digital initiatives that we are creating for the doctors and the patients. Apart from that, again, the larger objective is is there a way we can bring in other stakeholders, support other stakeholders in their fight against cancer, and not just the known or obvious ones? Can we also bring in other ecosystem members which are not necessarily known to be active digitally, like the larger pharma companies or organizations like that? We are taking some initiatives towards that side, but it's at a nascent stage right now.
All right, I think that's quite something. OncoBuddy sounds to be a very, very powerful resource to both the cancer patients and the clinicians. So Kshitij, for our audience here, I would just like you to, let them know as to how they can access this application. How is it that, they can know more about it?
Sure, thanks, Divya. So currently, OncoBuddy has been launched very recently, actually, and it's available on Google Play Store. So anyone can download and they can sign up for it. They'll initially get access, and if there is any challenge, obviously they can reach out to us.
Great. So I think Google Play Store, I think most of our audience are familiar to it. Everybody has a smartphone today. Everybody knows how to access Android. So I think OncoBuddy is definitely something that they should be looking forward to. We also have an Instagram page for OncoBuddy where we keep sharing insights about different posts that we put up on OncoBuddy. So if any of our audience are quite active on Instagram, that can definitely be an insightful page for them as well. Moving on, Hitesh spoke a lot about genomics. Kshitij spoke about how we're entering the digital space and getting new solutions, which are definitely very exciting solutions, according to me. I mean, having an OncoBuddy is definitely going to be something that is, going to be a reliever for a cancer patient, to be honest. So moving on to what we're doing in our lab side, which is essentially, you can say, the heart and soul of how 4-base care functions. And Dr. Vidya, we have Dr. Vidya here who multitasks a lot. So all of us at 4-base care know how good a multitasker she is and how well we handle the lab and how we maintain the quality of the genomic services that we offer. And as we move forward, there's so much more exciting coming on our lab side also. So Dr. Vidya, can you throw some light on how, we're essentially, what's in our clinical pipeline now? What kind of research are we looking forward to essentially close the care gap that we have?
So our strength is our clinical collaborations. Okay, so it is not so easy to gain the confidence of an oncologist. And I think it comes only by, as you do more and more work very closely with them, understand their space, where they are in, and what we exactly need to cater in the Indian context. What drugs are available, how can we design cost-effective panels for them and validate it in order that they can provide the best care to their patients. So that is where the entire theme revolves. Okay, so every scientific question. So by and large, cancer research has always been mostly translational in the last decade or so, because most of the fundamental work is still going on, but the exponential rise in information that we are gathering in the medical literature is more from the clinical studies, trial studies. And India has also been in the forefront, and some of our collaborators have done some fantastic research in head and neck cancer management and lung cancer management, where practice-changing decisions have been given from an India perspective in terms of research that had been done on Indian cancer population. So that means to say that the international guidelines are slowly starting to incorporate what we are seeing from this part of the world also. And we are not very far. And our first, flagship, that is our Indigene, is one first thing, which we did, where we try to compile all the diverse cancer types that we know from Indian population. So unlike the white or Caucasian or East European population, we know that Indian population is a very diverse population and multiple ethnicities in here. And if you see their ancestry, there are many ancestries which can be traced back, who are people migrated from different parts of the globe coming to India probably millions of years ago. So unlike the other continents, the South Asian continent, particularly the India and the neighboring countries, have a very diverse nature of their polymorphisms. Therefore, one wants to understand the disease here, one has to look at the genomics here and ask the questions based on what is the outcome that you see for the drugs that have been developed in the West. Are we getting the same answers or not? If not, what we need to do to change this? So in those lines, I would say what we do as translational research is not bench to bedside, but it is also from bedside to bench. And the important questions that we get from bedside is coming from our collaborators or our clinicians who are using the genomic testing to treat patients. So essentially, doing research in-house with whatever knowledge that we gain from our own patients, it helps in treating the patients in a much better way, in giving the best quality of care. So that is where I think research is moving in India today. And we at 4Base Care, we have certain panels that we have developed and validated beyond Indigene, which are very, very cost effective. Like the HRR panels for the 4 different cancer types, and then we have the Target First, where we are only looking at therapy options for the patients across all cancers. In those lines, we are also looking at tailor-making treatment-related decisions for individuals based on their own tumor molecular profile by doing some in vitro and in vivo work. So we are taking leaps in steps where we are trying to contribute back to the society in terms of closing this care gap for cancer. So that's what I would like to add on to what we can do from the research front. So there is a very subtle line of difference between research and what is essentially done in clinical practice. So clinical practice goes by standard of care guidelines, but there are certain questions that remains after the treatment through standard of care guidelines, and that is where people start asking more questions about the biology of the disease. And that is where I think knowledge helps. So, and with that, I think that's what I would like to add in terms of research that can help.
I think, Divya, just to add to what Vidya said,
Yes.
which you did not mention was the importance of doing this kind of a research and collaboration, right? Where you directly see an impact on patient's life. So tumor mutation burden, as we all know, is one of the important biomarkers. And universally, it has been approved that score of 10 and above is an indication of it working well with certain immunotherapies, right? Now, we have recently submitted a paper based on an extensive work, which we have done on more than 1,000 cancer patients' tissue. And what we have seen is that tumor mutation burden cannot be just defined by one score, but it has to be very specific from the perspective of cancer site and the population, right? So and we actually compared that data with some of the data that we downloaded from Caucasian population to compare in the same cancer type, how Caucasian, what are the scores for Caucasian population versus our population? Very exciting findings. But this is what we're talking about in terms of doing that kind of a translational research where we involve data from our perspective, and also the collaboration that we have with clinicians who are helping us understand that if this particular score is there, what is the clinical outcome system? Because it's all has to translate it to clinic at the end of the day. So it's very important to look everything from this perspective. There's a lot of interesting research that we are doing, and we're continuously collaborating because as our tagline says, right? together we beat cancer. We know that alone we cannot do anything. We need to bring in the ecosystem and work together.
I think that's another very important aspect that Hitesh has highlighted on, that to close the care gap, a very important step is also to make others aware about, what kind of a research we're coming across. So these publications that we put across are a very important tool to let the world know as to, there's so much that we still don't know about. So, and there's so much coming more, we're sure, with the target indigene being a major breakthrough in the world of genomics. We're definitely looking forward to more research coming ahead from Forbase Care to essentially close this care gap. With that, I would also like to pose a question to Hitesh about, so Hitesh, we're talking a lot about the accessibility and affordability of this next generation sequencing test. So, what are your thoughts on more so on the affordability part of it? So, there's the price war running between in the market of clinical diagnostics. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's good for the patients eventually, with more companies coming in and providing their solution. There's more sensitivity in terms. Although most of the companies are looking at price perspective from getting a one up from other competitors, but at the end of the day, it benefits patients. So I'm very excited about this space from the competition perspective, because it's always important to have competition, because that challenges you to continuously innovate, and that eventually leads to better outcome for the patients, right? But at the same time, I think we should also be working not just on the pricing part. Pricing is, of course, very, very important, as I discussed earlier, but also to make sure that the kind of content which is covered, because the end of the day, patients are coming to us to identify the right markers for the treatment. So to make sure that the coverage of the genes, the comprehensiveness of the panel has been designed, developed, and validated in consultation with working very closely with researchers and oncologists in the space to get their understanding of what needs to be included and all. And a lot of effort has to be put from that perspective, rather than just importing the panels from the West and using them, right? I think we are in India now. I think we have reached that position there where we can lead the innovation. And that's what I would urge everyone to do, and because that would lead to better solutions for our patients in this particular region.
Definitely. So also, I think the awareness about next generation sequencing, how precision oncology, genomics is particularly going to be very helpful to the patient. I think there's a lacune with that as well. So Kshitij, can you throw a little light on how OncoBuddy can help fill up this gap, and specifically in terms of how we're helping patients understand and know more about next generation sequencing and precision oncology?
So thanks, Divya. So the idea is, yes, OncoBuddy will be very, very important for us to showcase to patients, not just about the NGS as the next thing, but any and every new technology that is coming in. And OncoBuddy, that's the reason we've kept it independent from the genomics side of the company. The idea is that we don't want to necessarily talk about what Forbase Care does and what only Forbase Care does on OncoBuddy, but what patients can utilize from the knowledge that has been derived across the world, and learn from that, and probably reach out to their treating oncologists. Obviously, we want to not just jump the gun and talk about any and every new technology that is being developed in any and every center, because sometimes those things where patients probably are given false hopes, we don't want to bring that. It's always very, very important to understand what is feasible to be done in India, and that's something that we want to bring in. But having said that, we also want to utilize OncoBuddy and the ecosystem to bring in, or to say, figure out if we can encourage the inclusion and utilization of clinical trials, which is a thing which is not that much being utilized in India. And there has been history behind it, and we do want to work towards solving that part. But can we probably figure out, like I was saying, with larger stakeholders, and bring in clinical trials in a better, efficient manner to India? and thereby supporting more patients. That will solve not just the availability of the most advanced technology, but also if patients are able to participate in those clinical trials, they don't necessarily need to pay out of their pocket. And there are many, many patients who can benefit from those kind of things. And that's something that we are actively trying to figure out and working with not just people within the company, but outside as well. Can we bring out those newer technologies to the country through OncoBuddy, apart from just the information that we can bring it on?
I think that's awesome. So I believe also OncoBuddy is like a very friendly platform where patients can post questions as well, if they have any.
Yes, yes. So there is a panel of specialists in the back end, which includes oncologists, which includes psychologists, which includes genetic counselors, dietary counselors, and others, where patients can pose their questions specifically on an Ask an Expert section, and they get personalized answer to their specific queries. That does not mean that that answer is not helping other patients. We want to utilize the same opportunity to showcase that, look, you're not the only one having these problems, and others are asking this. You should also ask. So we actively promote that as well. But the amazing part that I have been seeing on OncoBuddy is not just about the questions and the queries and the problems. It's also about the positivity that a lot of patients are sharing about their lives. So we have been having patients who share their recently made paintings. We've been having patients who share their poems and other things, which is the most exciting part that I feel. There is a positivity that is coming out, and it's driven by patients and not by anyone else. And that's something that I believe is rubbing off on others, which I think is a major, important part in the fight against cancer. But by being keeping a positive attitude, I believe that it's the half battle won.
And I think positivity is like one of the most important therapies that we know about. And I think we all have molecular markers for the same. So works wonders for everybody, definitely. Great. I mean, I think that is so awesome. I would request our audience to definitely check out OncoBuddy. I mean, it sounds like a very, very interesting application. So my last question would be to Dr. Vidya. I would like to understand as to, we're slowly moving towards getting more comprehensivity in terms of genomics, right? We were in a world where we were looking at only specific markers, specific genes, but slowly we're taking baby steps towards what is more of a comprehensive panel, trying to venture into what we do not know about, the lesser known, I would say, but I think it's working wonders. So if you could share your experience about how these comprehensive panels are helping our clinicians today.
So comprehensive approach of looking at the tumor, it was late in India, but it had already been there in the West about 5 years, 6 years ago. The primary reason why comprehensiveness in understanding the disease biology at the time of diagnosis got delayed in India is primarily because most of the patients pay out of their pocket. And more than anything, the cost of the test, it was very expensive almost 5 to 6 years ago. Now, there are two things happening. One is the cost of sequencing is drastically coming down in the last 5 to 6 years. And the second thing is people like us who are trying to develop esoteric assays or indigenously developed assays in-house in India, validate them as per the international standards and offer them in the clinic, has significantly brought down the cost of these tests. So essentially, the threshold has come closer to middle income group patients who can afford to take these tests. Earlier, it was only accessible for a high income patient, now middle or even a low income. And the other thing which is also good to know is many pharma companies are doing a lot of patient support programs. And this has been there ever since the discovery of gefitinib and erlotinib when it came to market almost a decade and a half ago. So this continues to be there in India, and I think these aspects really are helping to increase the use and application of comprehensive genomic profiling. And it has been very well taken, and very well awareness is there in tier 1 cities and to some extent in tier 2, but then there is a lot of scope to get this through nook and corners of India, where there are many oncologists who are treating in community centers. I think that is where we have to spread this knowledge. And one such activity which we did try to do last year was the Gallants program, where we wanted to bring in the importance of comprehensive genomic profiling. Small or big, how does it help a clinician to understand the disease in the first place in the right way? So it is being said that when you treat the cancer at first time in the right way, the cure rate is much more better than if you knew very minimal information about the disease. So in that sense, understanding the disease comprehensively definitely adds value. So I think there is a significant increase in the use of CGP, comprehensive genomic profiling, by many oncologists, and there is a lot more to spread the knowledge, bring in the value add, spread that real world cases, how it has helped inform the clinician community, and that will probably bring in more doctors to start using this test approach. So again, here, what is comprehensive will vary from one clinician to another, and disease to disease. So it has to be taken in a very methodical way, and it may not be like one size fits all. One CGP is not a solution for all cancers. One has to tailor make, and I think that is what most of the practicing oncologists are doing, who apply CGP in their regular practice.
Very well said, Dr. Vidya. So I think we're all aware of how there are so many inequities that our cancer patients face in today's world, how the cancer care, which essentially, should be definitely, everyone deserves it. Everyone deserves the best of it. But there are unfortunately a lot of inequities, and there is a huge gap that we need to address and try and close. And we've had our wonderful speakers adding up to their contributions as to how, they have their thoughts on how they are going to essentially work towards closing this gap, having more collaborations, clinical collaborations with clinicians, with other stakeholders in the industry, how we're going to make use of advanced health technology, digital technology at its best to help and serve our patients. And then definitely how we're going to move forward into exploring what we don't know about, into trying and getting more indigenous stuff. Make in India is what our Prime Minister also believes. So definitely we at Forbase Care are working very hard to work and close this care gap. And we're hoping that in the next discussion that we have, we would have come a long way from today, definitely. So thank you very much. Thanks to our speakers. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'm sure it was very insightful, and our audience have got great take-home messages today. With that, I would like to just ask in the audience if you have any questions. Our speakers are here for a few more minutes to address your questions. So any questions that you have with respect to what they've shared today, or anything that you would like to ask them, we'll be happy to take them on the platform.
Divya, while we're getting questions, I think one important thing that we should take home over here is that of all the collaborations that we are talking about, right? The most important collaboration has to be with the patients. Patients have always been thought of as payers. I think for us to close the care gap, the first thing that we should start thinking or bring a mindset change or the attitude change is that start thinking of patients as partners. And even patients have to think like that, right? The more collaboration that we have with the patients, the more we engage with them, the more we learn from them. I think, like what Vidya mentioned, the research will not be from bench to bedside, but bedside to bedside kind of a thing, right? So that's what is very, very important.
Definitely. So I think something very impactful, patients not as payers, but as partners. So a very strong take home message to take today. Definitely. And like Kshitij said, we hope we're going to move from saying the C word to saying cancer and, knowing all about it and knowing how to treat it too.
Yep.
All right. With that, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for being a part. Thanks to our wonderful audience for joining in. We look forward to having more such insightful panel discussions in the future. Thank you very much. Hope you all had a great time.